the letters made me realize it can't dictate who we can and can't care about, that we can connect unconditionally. That doesn't mean we have to agree, and it doesn't mean we have to be BFFs. It means we can care about people and respect them.
What this is saying to me too is that we've all lost the ability to listen to each
Right.
other. It's become he who shouts the loudest, he who has the last word. And I think that what this process does is it naturally just puts that on pause. The pace is slow enough that people have to listen and absorb, and then they can choose to respond or not. But it's not this heated, like we've all gone down that Facebook rabbit hole where we're just like, why? Why did I do that? That was a bad idea, right? And then you just end up in a really, really icky place. But this takes all of that out of it, which I think is so interesting.
And I think you also, you're connecting on just that human level. To Lisa's point earlier, it's like we've gotten away from that. We kind of forget about the humanness of the people that we do disagree with. Welcome back to another episode of Drinks with the Girls. We are so excited for this episode today. We have a very special guest. She is a keynote speaker, an author, a sports journalist, which I want to talk about later.
That's wild.
And we are just going to dive into some of her books today and the message that she wants to spread to the world. Her name is Amy Wineland Daughters, and we are so excited to have her here. But you know the drill, listeners. Before we really get to it, we have to talk about what we're drinking. Today, I am drinking just a boring old Spindrift sparkling water, but it is my favorite orange tangerine flavor.
Ooh, is it orange and tangerine or just tangerine?
It's actually blood orange tangerine.
Dang, that's extra.
There you go. Yes.
I'll have to try that.
Oh. What are you drinking today, Lisa?
Okay, so now as I have committed to, I'm trying to level up my game because every week I come on and Karen's got some like crazy something or other, and I'm just got something boring. Well, part of that was the flu for God knows how long. So I am drinking a Recess hemp and adaptogen-infused sparkling water, the calm, cool, and collected version, which is, life goals. And it's pomegranate hibiscus. So I am trying to jump into the world of adaptogens. When we did our podcast on neurology, Andrea Samadi, who hosts her podcast that was on ours, really talked a lot about some of the stuff that she does. So I'm trying to drink my way through those.
Without further ado, Amy, so glad to have you here. We are very excited. And before we really get going, what are you drinking tonight?
Yeah, well, now I feel FOMO that I didn't go sparkling water, like 6 different things. So
it's completely fine. Trust us. This is all like a delicate dance that we don't do very well. So it's all good.
Well, I'm more of a ribbon dancer, so it's not delicate. And I'm drinking a fine glass of the Federalist Cabernet.
Oh, yeah.
Sounds good.
Oh, we'll get along just fine.
So, Amy, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about you and what you want to talk about tonight?
Right. So I'm an author, a speaker, a freelance writer, and this story is the story of the story I want to talk about, or I came on to talk about, is about handwriting letters. And this is a story that happened to me when I was just minding my own business. So this is not something I went and, sought out and thought, oh, this will be inspirational. I'll go do this and write a book about it. That's not how it went down at all. I went on Facebook one day, and like everyone else, I had an old friend's name kick around in my head. And I thought, oh, I wonder whatever happened to Dana. Because I worked at this summer camp with her, like literally 35 years ago. And we spoke not one word. We had zero contact between then and the day I was on Facebook and remembered. Because we maybe spent 6 weeks together and we were both loud and thought we were hilarious. So I guess that was the connection. So I put her name in and voila, there she is. And I'm like, oh, well, this doesn't mean anything, so I'll just friend her. So I friended her. She accepted. I don't know if she really knows who I am or not. Again, it was, it's just a regular thing to do now. And so then I go and do the obligatory scroll through her life. And I find out right away that she's overachieved in kids. She has 5 kids, 4 girls, and the youngest is the only son, and his name is Parker. And right away I find out that Parker, this kid, is fighting cancer. And he's at the St. Jude Hospital in Memphis, Tennessee. So it's got to be pretty serious. So as a mom, as a person, I got involved in the story and just watched on the sidelines. I didn't hit like, I didn't hit comment, but I was kind of felt invested in the story. So he gets better. He goes to remission. They go back home. I'm not even really sure where that is. So it kind of goes back on the back burner. But then later that same year, the next year, the cancer comes back and they go back to Memphis. Um, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. Like, worst case scenario. So I sit at my desk Monday morning after reading this post, and it's like a lightning bolt hit me right in the side of the head. And I'm like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start writing them cards and sending them to the Ronald McDonald House in Memphis, Tennessee. And it was like I was so committed to this, it made zero sense. And I had not spoken to her still in 35 years. I'd never met the kid. They had no contact with me. I didn't hit like or comment. We didn't message each other, any of that. And I hadn't written anyone a letter in 25 years. So it's not like I came in this like I'm the letter writing lady. Here I go. And so I I start writing Dana and Parker these letters, and for about 10 to 12 weeks, I just write these cards and send them, thinking of you, blah, blah, blah. And I like to tell this story at different levels of me being crazy. So this was kind of DEFCON 5 of my craziness. I mean, they don't even know who I am. And of course, I don't hear back. But so 10 to 12 weeks into this, you can tell things aren't going well. And then there are no good words for this, but Parker passes away. He's only 15 years old. So just
Oh my
devastating.
goodness. Ugh.
And it had nothing to do with me, and I was aware of that. I sent a condolence card, and then I was like, "What do I do?" Because I felt so like the letter writing, I mean, the card writing thing was a thing. I felt so committed to it. So it was like mini lightning bolt. I was like, I'm just going to keep writing her letters, just Dana. But now I had to figure out where she lived. And I had met her husband the year before camp, and I had heard he was an attorney. So what a normal person would do would just be send the letters to this guy's law office. That makes sense, right? And so
Sure.
I keep writing her, and the letters get longer and longer, like 4 or 5 months. Every time I mail a letter, I'm like, this is dumb, this is stupid. What could this even do for her? She's just lost her son. What are you doing? But I couldn't stop myself. And so about 5 months in, I go to my mailbox, and there's a 10-page handwritten letter from this woman back to me.
Oh my God.
She talks about
Oh.
her grief. She tells me about her life. And at the end of the letter, she's like, "Oh, I didn't know I was going to say any of that, but it felt so good to say it all." So this kicks off 2 years of me and this person just writing letters to each other. We don't call, we don't text, we don't email, we don't even acknowledge each other on Facebook. It's hilarious. We just write each other letters. And
Okay, wait, Amy. Let me stop you for just a second because I just want to make sure. Like I've read your bio. I know this story, or I've read it. So you connect on Facebook. You were childhood friends at camp. Yeah.
right, yes, we're counselors.
Then you just connect on Facebook, and you don't even interact with each other's posts on Facebook, right?
No,
Okay.
we just
And then
we
you
just
get to
write.
this point.
Yeah, we
I'm
just
sorry.
write
Go
the
ahead.
letter. We just write letters. That's what we did for the first 2 years. Yeah.
Your first letter, where you didn't really communicate.
No, I started sending those cards when Parker was sick, and that was all
Yeah.
one-sided. And then when he passed
Yeah.
away, I just kept writing. And then when she wrote me back, that's when the two-way communication began.
I just wanted clarification because it just seems to me that this is such a divine, like something you're going on intuition, basically. Would
Right.
you say, is that fair to say you're literally just writing these letters because something is making you write them, and you're not even sure what that is?
Right.
Is
And
that
it's
is that
not
accurate?
me.
Yeah.
And people can frame it however they want to. And one of the things I learned in this whole process is, I mean, I can call that God, but really everybody needs to come to this story however they need to come to it, the universe, God, whatever you want to call it. But I was driven so hard by something that I knew that I was behaving irrationally, but I could not stop myself. I was so
Yeah.
committed. I felt like this is what I had to do.
That is so powerful because you're right. Like it's kind of when you step back to think about it, you're like, what am I doing? I'm writing these things to these people that don't even know me about probably the most intimate and personal thing that they've ever been through.
Right.
But okay, just keep going. Sorry.
No, no, that's a great point, and so she starts, we start this two-way communication. And this sounds so simplistic, but since we're writing these letters, there is no pressure for me to respond to any specific point about her grief because I don't understand that kind of devastating grief. All I can say is, "That's horrible. I'm sorry." And I know that sounds, but that's all I can really say. But I don't feel pressure like, and she's not sitting right in front of me. And so I can say whatever I want. She says whatever she wants. And so it's cathartic for both of us. I'm looking at my life from the outside in, like my marriage, my job, my kids, and I'm gaining this incredible new perspective on my own life. I'm learning about grief from her. She told me after the fact that she would go, let's say she went in the room, the 4 daughters are there and the husband, they're all devastated. If everyone seemed like they were having an okay day, she said she would try not to bring the room down and she'd go in the other room and write me a letter. And the unbelievable thing was we didn't know. I mean, it was incredible. So we had this free space, changed the way I looked at everything. But I had no idea, and she had no idea how we voted or what we believed in or what values we ascribed to, what our take on gender issues were. We had no idea. All we knew is we cared about each other deeply because we had shared. And we said stuff that was so ridiculous. Like I remember her telling me, I have never told anybody this, but I know I can trust you. Who says that?
Mm.
I'm a
Right.
stranger at the other end of a mailbox, but what it illustrates is how powerful this in writing, relationship is, especially in the electronic age. So about 8 months into writing Dana, her and I writing back and forth, I thought, if this one girl from Louisiana, on this list of people who I know to differing degrees, can bring this much depth into my life, what happens if I write all these people a letter, all the Facebook people? And that's when I went all world bananagrams. I was like, here's what I'm going to do
That's pretty
next.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a commitment, man.
Well, and I really,
And
to be honest with you guys, I didn't think I was going to finish. I put everyone's name in a box. I got a journal. I had stationery made. And I really thought, this is going to be a nice little 30 letter ride, but when I started doing this, I had no intention of writing a book. I had no intention of being on a podcast or speaking about it in public. I had no intention of any of that. Again, I had that same kind of drive with the letters, but once I started writing them, I was like, "Oh my goodness. This is probably the most important thing I'm ever gonna do in my life," because it had
mm,
such impact, not on the recipients for sure, but on me. It changed that entire trajectory of my life, which I can speak a lot to, that in 18 months, I ended up writing 580 handwritten letters.
I was just gonna say, so like this bolt of lightning happened somewhere between letter 30 and letter 580, right? Like, I mean, at some point you're like, yeah, this is not gonna be a 30 letter thing. This is gonna be a big thing.
Yeah, right, and it was probably and I struggled. I struggled to write every single one of those letters because 'cause I'm a regular girl, you're a human being. I sat down, 1, you're making yourself vulnerable. 2, it's nuts. People are gonna receive it and go, "What? Why are you doing that?" And 3, it's exhausting. But it but when I addressed each of these people individually, one by one, I realized I was just connected to all these rock stars with real lives that were messy and beautiful just like mine. And then I realized I was connected to each of these people for a reason. I ended up thanking people for stuff they'd done, apologizing, sympathizing, all those things just to fill these 2 pages, not because I'm some great human being. It was the ends to, a means to an end. And person by person, human by human, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm connected to all these people, and I don't care how they voted. I don't care about any of it. I just care about my 580, and we all have our 480, 1063, or whatever it is." And there was so much hope in it that there was no way I could have stopped. I mean, I stopped and I was exhausted at the end. I never wanted to write another
Yeah.
letter. Bye. I'm done with all of it. But it's an incredible story that is, as I said, has transformed who I am and what I do.
It reminds me a lot of this idea in a 12-step program where part of that is reaching out and making amends to the people that you've hurt, right? And you weren't trying to do that, but as stuff came up, you acknowledged it. But I mean, I have the limited experience I have with 12-step programs, people have said it's the hardest step, but the most meaningful is making that connection and doing that. So it just really struck me that it's very deliberate.
I've spoken to so many people about and no one's ever brought up a 12-step letter
Really?
writing form. And so thank you for that because that's a
Oh my
golden
gosh.
nugget and a great observation. So thank you.
That's totally what it reminded me of, right? Is just this very specific process and this part of it for sure. And a lot of what you said reminds me of Karen's and my podcast origin story, right? Which you heard. But, we had some context, a lot of context, obviously, before we reconnected on Facebook. But I like this idea of, because everybody's like, oh, Facebook finds all the people that I got disconnected from and the old boyfriends and blah, 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 right? And puts everybody together. But it also gives you a very specific box for this person to be in, like your political affiliation, you're this, you're that. And so it kind of assigns a context to someone, right? Yeah, I don't know. Karen, did you want to say something? I jumped all over you.
Yeah, I just the two things that really stand out to me is, you were talking, Amy, about how, you didn't really have an agenda. You were just doing it. And I think that is so fantastic because everybody on social media, I feel like, has some kind of agenda these days. But you were taking this platform, this social media platform, and you were like turning it upside down. You were making it something real. Like you said, you were able to connect with these people and see all the messy, beautiful, things that make us human, which we don't see online. We everybody tries to hide it most times. You just see kind of the filters, and you see through the lens, of social media, and you just took it and made it something so much more beautiful and powerful.
My name is Karen Shatafian, and I am a shameless coffee addict and empowerment coach for women, and my love language is authenticity. My mission is helping women unapologetically design a life they're in love with. Because what the hell are we waiting for? My website, KarenShatafian.com, has all my coaching packages and free offers like my midlife reclamation guide. In it, you'll find tools to help you decide how to create the most inspired and empowered version of yourself and your life. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram talking about ways women can show up for themselves after decades of showing up for everyone else. Join me as we throw off the shackles and live our best freaking lives. See the show notes for all the details. Cheers.
And that's a great point you made, is because I had so many people very rightfully, they wanted to know what the angle was. Like what? So
Yeah. What do you need? What do you want from me?
right. And I would say, because in finding addresses, like I would look for people's workplace or ask somebody who knew somebody, or I would Facebook message them and say, that was like my last resort. Like, Karen, what's your address? And they'd be like, what do and I'm like, I just want to send you a letter. I don't want you to join my cookie club or my
Right.
whatever club. I just want to
Right.
send you a letter. And that was part of the power. I mean, there were so many layers because when it happened over and over again, people were just overwhelmed with the idea of getting a letter. And I had no idea that this was going to happen. But people they felt so valued and seen by these letters. And it's not because I'm a great writer. I think it's more about the act of, we all have this little tool in our human toolkits. It almost seems too simple, but people were just blown out of the water. And I think they felt seen and valued, and they realized that I had sacrificed, my time and my 73 cents. And, I had to find an envelope and a stamp and go across town and find a place to drop it. And when they held it in their hands, like they're like, in this world of social media, this is how much I matter to another human being, this much.
Yeah,
And it was
absolutely. And that's why we thought your story was so good for Drinks with the Girls listeners, because we are all about connection. We're just all about helping women find ways to, to connect with each other, to be seen and heard and validated. So what you're talking about is just so in line with us here. But can you tell us, I don't think we've said, what is the title of your book?
oh, well, it's called Dear Dana. So that gives the nod to Dana and I. And then the subtitle is the longest subtitle in the history of books. That time I went crazy and wrote all 580 of my Facebook friends a handwritten letter.
I love it.
And it chronicles, so it starts with that Dana and I, and includes actual words between us. And then it followed, the second half of the book is 52 very short examples from the Facebook project, the Facebook letters, of an exchange between me and somebody and a lesson that I got out of it. It's a pretty easy read, but it just highlights the things that I learned in what I will refer to as the best 18 months of my life.
That's so amazing how it just really deeply impacted you. So I have a question. Okay, so in your 580 people, you have the people that you're not really friends with, right? Like in real life. You're just like, maybe you, I don't know, had a class with them at some point, or did you have those types of people on your? Because I look at my Facebook friend list and
Be a real short
but
letter for some of them. Yeah.
so did you start all the letters out the same, or how did you like break the ice? Or I guess you did that through Messenger. Is that
Right.
how it went?
Well, no, a lot of people got my favorite way to do it was you just got the letter and didn't know it was coming. Like it just came out of nowhere because
Yeah.
the impact was even deeper. But I did come up with a formula for the letters only because I wrote so many letters. And I always started every letter with, why am I doing this? I'm nuts. Dana and Parker. And I tell the story in like one sentence and then say, now I'm
Mm.
crazy and I'm going to write every single person who I'm connected to. And the funny part about that was I had so many people, even though I would disclaimer, I'm writing every single person. They'd be like, you chose me. You picked me, even though I was 100% clear, but that just illustrates what it meant to them. They felt chosen, even though I was clear on everyone was being chosen. So I wrote that first paragraph and then I had a page and a half or more to go to write this letter. So just naturally, not because I'm a great person, I went to the person's profile and looked at it. And though that can't convey a real human life, what I found out over and over again was, again, that these people were living these real, incredible lives that I wanted to connect with. And so I treated each person individually. The first thing I did is I looked through. And so let's say, I was writing you, Karen. Well, I would say, oh my gosh, Karen's doing this podcast, this coaching, and all these amazing things. Rock star, you're a rock star. I'm so proud of what you've done. And then maybe I found out you lost a parent or you were struggling with something. Well, I could say, well, I'm so sorry. You have my support. That's easy to write about. Human stuff. Connect with the humanness, and get to say those things. But the best part was the last part. I still have a half a page here. What am I going to say? Well, then I'd be like, oh, Karen, what was that like? We were in high school together. Oh yeah, Karen was the one who stood next to me by the payphone when Larry broke up with me and like talked me down. I was like, this is not going to define your life. So Karen was doing her whole coaching, job back in high school, and then I get to say, Karen, hey, thanks for being there for me, and I get the chance to do that. And, imagine what it would feel like to get a letter like that. But guys, imagine what it would feel like to write a letter like that. It's absolutely, because then your gratitude meter just goes off the charts, but if I was writing somebody I didn't know well, I could still look at their profile and be like, oh, you root for the Patriots. Oh, you remember we were dancing at that person's wedding? That was hilarious. We're connected to the same people. I think that's beautiful. I hope your real life, which I know is messy and beautiful all the time, is better than social media ever could be. It just got easy to write it because you can be sincere just by knowing a few things about a person. But if it's somebody you really knew that had some kind of actual meaningful interaction, it just became an absolute exercise in just, I don't know, joy. You get to say those.
So, listeners, we like to bring our moms in on this podcast because it's a big, connecting factor between Karen and I. And it's just so interesting listening to you talk because my mom was a huge letter writer and was very like when social media started, she was just like, I don't get it. Like, this is ridiculous. But I still have people today that will tell me I've kept the letters that your mom wrote me. She had really distinctive handwriting. I know Karen's mom did too. And that was a thing that she
Well,
did.
I have some of Renee's letters. I've kept your mom's
Yeah.
letters.
Yeah, I need to get copies of those, right? But she certainly wasn't setting out on a mission to like write a bunch of people, but I do remember that when people were suffering or in a difficult situation, she would put them on her letter writing kind of like roster and reach out to them. And it's been very wonderful to me to hear back from people who've kept them. And I sometimes when people see me, they will bring me like a photocopy of the letter that she sent. And I treasure those because like Karen, like I'll hold on to any scrap I can at this point. So this is giving me mom vibes here, which is really cool.
We still have the opportunity to give that gift that your mom gave. We still have that opportunity. That's what because I did I wrote letters and I still write somebody every day, kind of like what your mom did is what I do now is I see something that's happened on Facebook. I know somebody in person and I have little tabs in this notebook. It's like sympathy, congratulations, support. These are the tabs. Every day I open it up and pick someone on the list and write that person a card. And it doesn't have to be a letter. It can be 5 sentences. That's the important that's really important point in this story is that you don't have to write 2 pages and you absolutely do not have to write 600 letters. But just the act of doing it once or twice it can be life-changing.
Well, and I think it's just that connection in just like this hugely disconnected world. And I'm so glad that you like shared your process with us because, you could have just been like, oh, hey, just checking in, just want to write you a letter and say, hey, but no, like and now I know why it was exhausting because I'm sure each one, that's a lot of emotion that goes into that. And I think, us Gen Xers, I feel like we're the last generation of letter writers. Like I used to have to write thank you notes when I got Christmas gifts and things. Did you guys?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
don't know about millennials. Like I did I made my kids write thank you notes and stuff. And actually my son is very good at writing things and sending it in the mail to people. He's good at that. I don't think my daughter is, but I think that this is a lost art.
It's definitely not a thing anymore. Like I've noticed, like if I send a baby gift or something like that, God, I sound old, but this generation, it always
Right.
just shocks me when I don't get a thank you note back because like
Agreed.
that was like how you rolled,
Agreed.
and I just kind of, right? But it's just, I have to remind myself this is not part of this generation's culture. They did not grow up on that. Half of them don't even know how to write in cursive. So, and that's just not a thing anymore either. So,
But that adds to its power. I mean, what it's done is it ramped up the power because when someone gets something like that, no matter what context it's in, it becomes a very meaningful experience. It is a window of opportunity in connection. And, I've been invited to speak to groups that these real estate people have me come speak. And I was like, why would the real estate people want me? Because this little tool fits in anywhere where there's
Yeah.
two humans trying to connect with each other in organizations, client referral based business, but absolutely personally, because since it's like the anti AI. I mean, it's going, and you said it perfectly. We're the last generation of letter writers, but it gives us this opportunity to pass this on, and keep it alive. And because it will inspire. I've talked to so many people who've gone on their own little card writing journey because of the story. And I mean, it literally has an opportunity to knock down some of this divisiveness that exists between us.
and it's just, yeah, it's a very different way of looking at things. Like for some reason, this is coming to mind, but I remember when Meghan Markle and Prince Harry got married, she was a calligrapher. That was something that she did to kind of make extra cash at the time before she became a successful actress. And one of the issues was this whole thing about her dad not coming to the wedding and being able to give her away. And it was this whole big thing. And she had written him this long letter. And it was just such a violation of privacy because a newspaper got a hold of it and published it.
Oh.
Yeah. And just that kind of began this long, horrible relationship that she's had with the press. But I'm sure for them, that was just grist for the mill, right? Like they're not hacking into somebody's phone records. Like they have this physical letter. So I think the symbolism and the power of something physical like that is just, it's a next level kind of a thing,
Oh, yeah, and then you think about it, you're holding in your hand something that your friend held in their hand, and, that was meant just for you with their handwriting, and, our handwriting, you had spoke that your mother had distinctive handwriting. That's something we've lost too, but it's a part of your personality, and the fact that you can't if you're gonna write even a three-line note, it's not gonna be perfect. Oh, it's just delicious because it's so anti today, and social media is worthwhile. I wouldn't be talking to you guys today without social media. And it's such a great
Right.
jump off point. This enhances connection in a way that I never thought possible. It's so powerful. It is incredibly, it has changed my life and I've watched it change people around.
When we talk about this generation, we all sound old, right? When you, I mean, I'm thinking about listeners that listen to this and go, okay, I don't know what to say. I don't have the time. Like, I don't even know. This sounds great, but I don't even know how to do this. And frankly, half the people on Facebook, like if you ask for their address in this day and age, they're like, wait, what? You know what I mean? Like there's a massive distrust about that. People are really private about their addresses for lots of reasons. So, like, I'm being devil's advocate here. Like, how would someone that has all this rolling around in their brain kind of start this process if this was something that they wanted to do?
Right. And the address question is so valid. And I probably got, and I don't know why, probably at the end it was because people knew there was a letter coming. I think there was probably 7 people who never gave me their address.
I was wondering if you ran into that where people are like, no, I don't want you to have my address. I don't.
Right.
Yeah.
And I would say that you start with people who you have access to their address.
Yeah.
That's where you start. And as far as I still sit down every morning when I write a letter and I still think you're putting yourself out there because I'm a human being, that this because it makes you vulnerable. So all that emotion about not doing it is completely understandable. And I mean, I feel that all the time. But a lot of times when I'm talking, people think of somebody they want to reconnect with or say something to. I would say just jump over the hurdle and do it and just be sincere. There's really no way to mess it up. And it can be in 2 sentences, like, "Dear Karen, thank you for being a friend all these years. You know, dear Karen, dear Lisa, I love you, love Karen." It can be that easy. There's so many different prompts you could do. I had somebody recommend write your children and write 5 things you love about them. That's it. Or just something you always wanted to say to somebody that you've never gotten a chance to say it to them. But I would get the smallest card you can get. You get somebody who you know you already have their address and just say something you wanted to say.
Okay, quick pause. Have we talked about the Pod Squad lately?
Oh, the Pod Squad. You mean our email list /VIP lounge /digital wine club?
Exactly. So listeners, if you're not on it yet, you're basically making life harder for yourself when it comes to podcasts.
Like trying to scroll for show notes while speed walking on a treadmill. Wait, what was that link again? Oh, no. Grab the side rails.
Or pulling up that book we mentioned while you're in the Starbucks line and then realizing everybody else moved up 3 cars and now you're that woman.
We've all been there. That's why we made the Pod Squad. You'll get new episode alerts every week with direct links. Easy to listen, easy to share.
And show notes straight to your inbox. So when we drop a life-changing product, book, hot tip, or yummy new drink, you're not rummaging through your memory like a woman searching for her reading glasses when they're on top of her head.
It's organized, it's helpful, it's for you, babes.
So join the Pod Squad. The link is in the show notes. Just tap it.
Snacks, sarcasm, solidarity.
And obviously, fighting the patriarchy.
We write at dawn. A lot of times I've done handwritten notes to clients, and it's like, oh my gosh. I mean, you would have thought that I gave them like a pile of gold. This last event that I did for clients, I got this amazing paper that has wildflower seed embedded in it. I don't know if y'all have seen that, right? It's really cool. And so this idea that I'm writing this letter on that, and then there's a little thing you can pop in there, but afterwards, rather than throwing it in the trash or doing whatever, they plant it and then flowers grow. And I just thought that that was super cool. But people are like, oh my God, that's awesome.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, I think that the problems with my story are twofold. One, I'm a writer. So people think, oh, I'm not a writer. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
And 2, she wrote 600 2-page letters. That's stupid. I mean, it's ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous. And I did it. I mean, I think God or the universe gave me this great story so I could be on great programs like this and talk about it. It's a jump off point. It sets the stage. But really, it just takes, anybody with a pen and a human heart and 73 cents can pull this off. And it just has to come from a place of sincerity. And you have to tell yourself that it's okay to put yourself out there. But I'm here to say, based on a ton of experience, this will not just enhance the person you're writing to, it will change who you are. Because I think it's generally, we accept that if I'm writing Lisa a letter or a note and saying something kind or sincere or thanking you, that you're the person who's going to be the benefactor of this transaction. But the real truth is, friends, the person who's going to be the most changed is the person who wrote the letter or the note. And there's science attached to that. Things with handwriting, writing stuff down, journaling. It does something. There's some endorphin that's released in our bodies. And I'm not a scientist. I'm just another skinny hot girl, on the podcast. But there's something that happens to you. You will be better. You will be more filled with hope. You will be more filled with gratitude. There's something about your mental health that will be improved. And I'm here to tell you that because I am the middle-aged woman who did this in my 50s, and my life got totally changed. My heart got blowed up.
So you said two things that I really want to touch on, because in my work with women, and Lisa knows this.
Here we
I
go.
talk about it on the podcast. I have every single one of my clients journal, and most of them fight me in the beginning. Some harder than others.
Some more than others.
And so I want to talk about two really, really impactful things you said. One of them, I want to talk about writing, like actually writing with pen or pencil. I like writing in pencil, but pen or pencil on paper versus typing. And then also, I want to talk about the unsent letter, and if you feel like there's any value in that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and like I said, I've read a lot of the science about journaling and handwriting, and it's almost the story of me writing to Dana, because that was like journaling almost. Because she used to say, it's almost like Dear Diary, not Dear Dana, where Amy goes into all her feelings, because it's not intrusive. I'm not expecting her to reply. Maybe she's going to read it, maybe she's not. But I still write her almost every week because it's good for me, and that's what it makes me think of. It is like journaling. And there's something about writing it down. It's almost like when we were in school and they're like, if you write your notes down, you're going to remember them better,
Yeah.
and there's something that's released. You're using a different part of your brain, because I think we're slowed down with a pen. And so the process, the thought process is different. And
Yeah.
you also have to, you can let things marinate, write them down, you can go back to them. And you can do that on Microsoft Word, but it's different. There's a different part of your brain that's used. And the second part, you said the unsent letter. Yes, the unsent letter is super powerful. The letter to yourself, the letter to my father who's passed away, the letter to, I got to people's names in the Facebook project, and people passed away between the time I put their name in the box and pulled it out. I wrote those people a letter. They're sitting in the back of my file cabinet,
Mm.
and maybe there's letters that you want to send to say stuff you want to say to people, but you don't want to send it to them.
I got a few
I
of
did
those.
that with my dad. Right. I did that with my dad when I was, gosh, I think maybe I was in my late 30s or something, because I had a lot of stuff I needed to forgive him for. And I didn't know that a conversation was actually going to go the way I wanted. So I just wrote him a letter. And it's amazing how healing it is. I mean, I was able to let so much stuff go, even though he never read that letter.
Right.
Is wild.
And you look at the topic from the outside in, just writing the letter, you're going to gain a whole nother perspective on it. And it's
Yeah.
super powerful. And I think that's the thing about this story. Like I said, like, do a card, do 4 of them. If this inspires anything inside to do with anything, well, then the story has had all the impact I could ever hoped it would. Because I think one of the best parts of the story is the whole idea of acting out on a crazy idea, like being so inspired to do something. But maybe that's the whole point, is whatever you're inspired to do, go do it. And be surrounded by people who are going to support you with your crazy nuttiness. Because that's where I was fortunate. As women, especially, we don't have to have a blueprint. Let's all write our own blueprints and cheer each other on.
The blueprint thing reminds me, you said that you had kind of a recipe or a formula. Can you share that with our listeners who are like, I really want to do this and I actually want to send it, but I'm trying to figure out how to start this.
Oh, the formula for the actual body of the
Yeah,
letters?
yeah.
And that was in the first part, past what, saying what I was doing. The first part was always to go and just sit back and think. And I did this by looking at the Facebook profiles. But like, what does this person's reality look like? What is their real life? And like, get in that headspace where you're like, oh, this is what they do. Think about their job, think about their kids, and really zero in on what their real life looks like. And then really think about, what does this person mean to me? You know? And then between those two things, when you really think about that person and the interaction you had with them, how you're connected, and then the fact that they're living this real life where they need support or congratulations, or, between those two things, you're going to come up with 2 or 3 sincere sentences that you can say to that person. You're going to find a reason to support them, to thank them, to apologize for them. I wrote people who I fired at a job I had, and that was so satisfying because I got it out there, out of my body into the universe. And two of those people wrote me back and told me they loved me at the end of the note. And think about how freeing that is for me. But that the two steps would be just to treat that person as an individual, look at who they really are, past the things you know that are different about you, the voting or all this divisiveness. And what does a real messy, beautiful life look like? And then what do they mean to you?
So, what do you think, Amy, is one letter that every woman over 40 should write?
That was the exact question I was going to ask her. So we both wanted to ask you. I love it.
I don't know. That's hard. The one letter that every woman over 40 ought to write. That's really difficult to narrow down one person.
We
I
don't
would
have
say, well, I'd say whether living or no longer living, I think you have to write your mother. You know,
Hmm.
I think you write your mother, and you let yourself, and maybe to your point, maybe you mail it or you don't mail it. You know, but I think women over 40, now we've lived past, now most of us have had kids and marriages, and we see our mother in a different light, because now we've done the things that they've done, and you look back, especially when you get your 50s and your kids leave, and you're like, "Oh my god, that was quick, and I hope I didn't screw the whole thing up." And you're like, "Oh my god, my mom's a goddess," even though we didn't get along. I don't know. I think that would be
Yeah.
the first thing that comes to mind.
Well, and even people that have difficult relationships with their mothers, or they didn't know them, or whatever, like, I think that there's power in that, because that's such an archetypal relationship. I mean, Karen mentions writing her dad. I mean, we're not going to get into my stuff with my dad right now because I don't want to. but that the power of that relationship, right? I mean, that just, yeah, there's a lot there.
The other thing for me, my sister too. I'm thinking what were the most powerful letters I wrote in that whole slew of letters. And those would be up there. But even my sister-in-laws, who I'd always sat at the other end of the Thanksgiving table and thought of nice stuff I'd like to say to them, but never in my living mind, never in the history or the future of the world would I say out loud, because, oh my God, please tell me my feelings aren't going to come out with these in-law people. But those were so satisfying because I got to say stuff that I always wanted to say that I would never say out loud. Never.
I'm just curious, and you only share, what you're comfortable with, but can you expand on that a little bit? Like, you would never say that, like, to them because they were going to think that you were like this. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but so tell me why.
Oh, like some cheese ball,
Right. Okay.
feelings.com. Like my husband's brother's wife, I was like, I had no idea when we signed on to marry brothers. Like, I had no idea that what that meant was you and I were going to sit next to each other for the
Yeah.
entire of this crazy show we've watched. And I
Right.
told her, and I was like, I'm just so glad I got put with someone. We're not best friends, but oh my God, I could have done so much worse than you. And thank you for loving my kids and sitting next to me through this entire
Totally.
ridiculous affair that we've done. And it
You're
was
in the
so
trenches together.
right. And just saying, look, you're a good person. Like, we're not besties. We don't talk on the phone every week, but I would not want to do this with anyone else. And I see other people's situation, and oh my God, I feel like I hit the lottery with you.
I can only imagine how it was for her to receive that.
Yeah,
Like,
she told
how
me she bawled.
fabulous.
Yeah,
Oh,
she
I'm
told me
sure.
she
Yeah.
cried. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so and that was so satisfying to have said that. And I'd thought it before just in looking at her, but you can't say that out loud to someone.
Yeah.
Your sister-in-laws.
Right. Yeah.
They're
And
just
people
Yeah.
people feel seen. And I also think, kind of on the other end, I feel like as connected as we all are with social media, people have lost the ability to connect. And I'm not going down a political rabbit hole, but I will say that hasn't helped matters. But I know that you really believe that what makes us different is what actually connects us. So can you share an example of that? Because, I think that people are like, yeah, well, I can see writing letters to this and such person, but that that other person, like, no, I just don't have anything in common with them anymore. I don't know what I would say. Like, talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's one of the biggest takeaways from this experience for me because I did write people who I was absolutely sure, I knew voted different than I did, had a different stance on,
Everything.
religion, everything, culture, lifestyle, everything. And I did write those letters. And at first I struggled with those letters, but then I went back to the two-step formula, the simple two steps. And I said, I have one specific example that I think of when I when you said the question or when I read it. There's this girl I went to high school with. I knew she ticked all those boxes. She and I were the people who were unfriending each other, at the time. And she spoke pretty strongly about what she believed, but I did like that she always did it in a way it was not hateful. There's a lot of vehement hatefulness, and she would present her opinion strongly, but she was also someone who would look at the other side of stuff, and she didn't go 100% black or white. Said, we went to high school together, and I remembered that. And I told her in the letter, I was like, look, I know we don't believe the same things. I said, but I just want to let you know that I'm glad we're friends and I'm glad we're different because that's how the world really changes. And I hope we can always still listen to each other because we started out life together. And I told her, I think you're brave because we got brought up in this tight suburban box and you're not afraid to stick your hands and arms outside of it, you know? And I just told her that, that I was glad we were connected. And again, that I thought our differences were part of our strength. And she wrote me back. And I would have never in a million years thought she would have written me back because I felt like she probably felt the same way. Like, what of our connecting points? And here's what she said to me. She said, Amy, when I hear from people like you, I'm just filled with so much hope and optimism.
Wow.
And stay in touch. Love, and her name.
Hey there, I'm Lisa Coricella McDowell, your midlife Pacific Northwest princess, here to guide you in the art of next leveling your life. I'm passionate about women's health and wellness in midlife, especially for moms parenting kids with unique needs like I do. I truly believe we can learn, grow, advocate, and care for the planet while taking care of ourselves and our families. And I'd love to help you do the same. Plus, I'm beyond excited to announce the launch of my new membership, the Empowered Parent Collective, this March. It's a space for parents to confidently advocate for their kids, build inclusive communities, educate themselves, and find balance and support along the way. To find out more about the Empowered Parent Collective, my classes, wellness offerings, parenting tips, advocacy resources, and exclusive Drinks with the Girls goodies, head to nextlevellifewithlisa.com. Let's survive and thrive in the messy middle together. Cheers.
If I saw her right now, we'd still vote different. We'd still do all the things different. But you know what? Just because this silly letter, and it's not silly, I'm just saying the idea, I would give her a big hug now. And I think she would embrace me with the same kind of warmth because all that stuff matters. But the letters made me realize it can't dictate who we can and can't care about. It's conditional connection that we're experiencing. And the letters made me realize that we can connect unconditionally. That doesn't mean we have to agree, and it doesn't mean we have to be BFFs. It means we can care about people and respect them.
And I think what this is saying to me too is that we've all lost the ability to listen to each other. It's become he who shouts the loudest, he who has the last word. And to be honest, sharing something from my personal life, it's one of the things I'm really struggling with my dad right now because he has to have the last word. He has to be the shouter over all of it. And I think that what this process does is it naturally just puts that on pause, right? Because there is no last word. There is no shout above to be heard, right? It's just this exchange of letters, and the pace is slow enough that people have to listen and absorb, and then they can choose to respond or not. But it's not this heated, like we've all gone down that Facebook rabbit hole where we're just like, why? Why did I do that? That was a bad idea, right? And then you just end up in a really, really icky place. But this takes all of that out of it, which I think is so interesting.
Yeah, a letter's non-intrusive, and it's a stage, where if someone's going to sit down with it, you have the stage, and your listener is captive, and with carefully chosen words that you took time to write, it's a whole different, arena. It's not a two-way exchange, and like you said, the pace of letter writing means that people, if they're going to get heated and send a letter, well, then that was done very deliberately. But it gives you time to think about what you're doing. And we've lost we've lost control of that too.
And I think you also, it's just you're connecting on just that human level. You're talking about feelings and emotions and memories. And, I just think that's like to Lisa's point earlier, it's like we've gotten away from that. Everybody's so reactive and we kind of forget about the humanness of the people that we do disagree with.
That girl had recently lost both her parents, and regardless of how you voted,
Yeah.
when you suffer a loss like that, you deserve support,
Yeah.
regardless of any of those things. And that's what we let it take away. And that's where a letter or a card, you're not asking anybody for anything, and you're showing them that you see them and that you value them enough, to sacrifice 15 minutes of your time, and that has such meaning. There's no meter for it. And there's corporations now investing in the software and hardware to make it look like they're sending people a letter. Think about that for a second. That's
That's
how
so messed up.
right. But that just shows you the power we have with the hand and the pen.
Yeah.
We have the power to do that. We're all sitting here with this power, and I'm only speaking about it. Yeah, I'm like a small business person. I want to sell books, but I don't even care about that. I am just telling you, this is, this is the real deal. This is a tool that we all have in our little human toolkits where we can absolutely make someone's week or year.
I mean, think about it. I have letters that from my grandmother and her cousin. So her cousin lived in England. She lived here in the United States, and they wrote to each other to communicate. They didn't call because that was expensive. And obviously
Right.
there was no internet or anything. And so, yeah, so I have all these incredible letters that they wrote back and forth, even though I never met him. It was just they're so precious. And I felt almost like a voyeur reading them because,
Right.
it was, I mean, not like anything crazy that they talked about, but it was personal. It was the personal things, happening. And I think it is just so, so powerful.
Have
Well,
either one of you seen 1923?
Yes.
Okay. Have
yes.
you seen it, Amy? So, letter writing is basically an integral part of that entire plot. That entire plot revolves around the idea of letters, right? And I don't want to spoil it, listeners, if you haven't seen the last couple episodes, but for those of you that haven't watched it, the meat of the story kicks off when an ancestor of the Dutton family receives a letter from his aunt that their farm and ranch is about to be taken, and can he please come home? And it starts this whole odyssey of his journey, of the people he meets along the way, of his soon-to-be wife's journey, of like what happens, right? And their letters that they write to each other are a major plot point and turn on that. And it occurs to me that, as we're talking about this, like that's a 2-year TV show that would not exist without this idea of letters being such a critical part of that, right? And it just shows how kind of we've lost that, right? Like that story would not happen in the world that we live in right now. And I mean, we can go down that whole Taylor Sheridan rabbit hole of his finger on the pulse of that particular time. But it is interesting to me that treatise on letter writing was as powerful as it was, because I don't think that show would have been as well received without that to kind of ground it. But I found that part incredibly powerful. I don't know if there's a question in there. I just comment.
And listeners, if you haven't seen it, go see it, 1923.
It's really good, y'all. It's really good.
So
Yes.
this has been such a fun conversation. I can't believe it's already been an hour. Amy, we like to leave our listeners with some takeaways. What are some important highlights that you would really want our listeners to walk away from this episode with?
Well, I mean, the obvious thing is, to put it into practice, and if you've thought of about somebody today as you've listened that you want to say something to, I would say be ready to feel like you're going to be vulnerable and like, what am I doing? Because I still experience that over and over again. But if you just get yourself over that wall, that just really can add depth to your life. And then I think the other thing is, I wrote so many people, and some people responded and some people didn't, but what it taught me was I think each of those letters made a difference whether I received a response or not. And so don't put your focus on whether you're responded to, because really when you write somebody a note or a letter, you're not asking for anything back, which is part of the gift that you're giving them, is maybe not to get caught up because we're trained now, read at 9:01, the text,
Yeah.
or we
Totally.
someone doesn't respond or like our Facebook post. And I'm guilty of all these things, so I'm not calling everyone else out. I'm totally guilty. But we're trained to anticipate this. If you become involved in note writing, just leave the response to the universe. And if they never respond, know that you've made a difference, whether you never hear back from anyone again. And that's so counterintuitive based on how we live today. But it makes
Right.
sense. I send people text now. I'm like, no need to respond, but I'm thinking about you because the letters taught me I want to let people off the hook. Like, you don't have to do that. I'm doing this. I'm just saying this because I care about you.
Yeah, there's no dancing dots here, right? You're not like looking at your phone at the 3 dots bounce going, wait, are they going to say something? Are they going to say something? Are they going to say something? Right. And it just completely jacks your focus on something else. Like this is the pause is an integral part of this process.
Right. And I think my final point would be, and we're at a moment in our culture, as women, this is the jump off point. If someone has a crazy idea on how to make this all better,
please step forward because we could use all the ideas that are good that we can right now.
Right. And so let's go. And all you have to do is believe in your own craft just long enough to take one step forward. That's all you have to do. And my story is a testament to that, and I'm not speaking about myself, blowing smoke up my butt, but I'm telling you, we all have this in us. If we all just believed in our own stuff long enough to take one more step forward and get all the doubt out of our minds, what kind of world could we make together?
Absolutely.
I don't know how we top
talk
that.
about that. Right? We talk about that a lot here on Drinks to the Girls. I think those 3 points are so poignant. Be okay being vulnerable. Don't have any, just kind of release expectation. Just do it to do it for you and not worry about the outcome. And then let's just freaking go. Like, let's just do it. Let's get rid of the self-doubt. We have this cockamamie idea, and just do it before you talk yourself out of it.
Right. Amen.
I think that's fantastic. So, Amy, this podcast is airing on a special day. Can you tell us what that is?
And that is the 3rd birthday of my beloved book, Dear Dana. That time I went crazy and wrote all 580 of my Facebook friends a handwritten letter. So what a way to celebrate the birthday.
We didn't plan that, y'all. We were just like, oh, okay, when's it going to air? So that is I'm getting chills. That is the universe at work, if ever there was.
Yep. So happy anniversary, Dear Dana.
Thank you. Thank you.
That is so cool. Amy, if listeners want to find you, want to find your book, I know we'll put that in the show notes, but ironically, is there a social media account that they can connect with you on? Like what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, I think my website's the best because it has all those links. So it's just amydaughters.com. It's got both the books and the speaking. And then best of all, guys, it's got my email address. I mean, I'm happy to hear from you, but I've got my mailing address. So if you write me a letter, I'll write you back.
Ooh.
That's fun.
I love it. Well, listeners, if you're in a writing mood, we love to hear from you, email or otherwise. I don't think we have our home addresses posted on our website. And I don't know if we're kind of ready for that quite just yet, but we'll take the emails or the comments or the reviews. Please do that. It helps us connect to more people and be able to bring this community together to you every week.
I just want to thank you again, Amy, for having this fun conversation with us and just kind of reminding us. Like, I feel like we all know, as Gen X women, we all know how it feels to receive a letter and to send a letter, but I think we've forgotten in the digital age. So thank you so much for reminding us.
Yeah, 100%. All right, y'all. Cheers. Oh, gosh, our pleasure.
Thanks, Amy. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks. Cheers.